How do you determine which task gets your immediate attention? Do you simply begin with the easiest task, the most enjoyable one, or do you start with what you believe to be the most important? Perhaps you have a few tasks that are time sensitive. With all these things to consider, it's easy to see how simply organizing and prioritizing your work can become a challenging task on its own. One simple productivity tool successfully used by many is the Eisenhower Matrix. Before we get into it, I'd like to quickly mention that I have transcribed this video and posted it on my blog over at successaccelerated.co, so if you prefer a written format over the video one, I invite you to go check it out. I'll leave a link to it in the description. So, what is the Eisenhower Matrix? The Eisenhower Matrix is a simple tool that helps you categorize tasks based on the urgency and importance of each task. The matrix is composed of 4 different quadrants. At the top, we will split the categories into 2 columns labeled urgent and not urgent. On the left side, we will split the categories into 2 rows labeled important and not important. This leaves us with the aforementioned 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1 on the top left is the urgent and important task. Quadrant 2 on the top right is the not urgent but important task. Quadrant 3 on the bottom left is urgent but not important task. And finally, Quadrant 4 on the bottom right are tasks that are not urgent nor important. Before we talk about what you can do to maximize your efficiency, productivity, and effectiveness, let's go over some examples of the tasks that you would find in each quadrant and the impact that these have on your life. Quadrant 1. Urgent and important. These tasks require immediate action and often have consequences tied to them if you fail to complete them. More often than not, these tasks are placed onto you from an external source. A few examples of Quadrant 1 tasks are time-sensitive assignments at work, clients or a boss coming to you with a problem, or other unexpected issues that you can't plan for, such as your car breaking down. This would fit into Quadrant 1 because it is an issue that must be immediately tended to, or else will cause other issues and consequences, such as being unable to get to work or another important destination. It's important to come to grips with the fact that Quadrant 1 tasks will always be there. Regardless of how hard you work, how focused you are, or how on top of things you are, these are inevitable and are often out of your control. With this in mind, it's important that you don't spend all of your time in Quadrant 1, as this can cause you to ignore other things and goals that are more important to you. Don't fall into the trap of letting these tasks deprive you of all your energy and your passion for what's important to you. Quadrant 2. Not urgent, but important task. Items in Quadrant 2 are activities that may not have a deadline, but will ultimately help build towards your long-term goals. A few examples include building relationships, exercising and other personal care, learning new skills or working on existing ones, and other passion projects. While both Quadrant 1 and 2 are composed of tasks that tend to have an effect on you from a long-term perspective, Quadrant 1 focuses more on problems, where Quadrant 2 has a heavier emphasis on growth, opportunities, and taking care of things before they become pressing problems. In fact, if you're consistent in setting aside an adequate amount of time and focusing on Quadrant 2 tasks, you'll notice that you'll have fewer Quadrant 1 problems come up. Again, I want to emphasize that Quadrant 2 focuses on growth and opportunities and contributes to meaningful long-term goals. Quadrant 3. Urgent but not important. Being that these tasks are labeled as not important, these are tasks that keep you busy but don't bring you anywhere closer to your meaningful long-term goals. These can include unnecessary interruptions and distractions from your surroundings, checking your devices whenever you receive a notification, unimportant meetings that you don't need to attend, responding to every text or email as soon as you get them, and certain chores. It's pretty clear that these don't really bring you anywhere closer to your goals and are usually linked to someone else's concerns. If nothing else, these tasks are often used to make us seem like we're busy, but aren't productive. You're likely driven to complete these tasks because of some perceived sense of urgency, but these tasks aren't meaningful. If you spend too much time and energy on Quadrant 3 tasks, you'll likely feel that you aren't living up to or working towards your life's purpose. Quadrant 4. Not urgent and not important. Simply put, Quadrant 4 is composed of tasks that you'd likely be better off without. Some examples include spending excessive time on the internet, especially social media, watching TV or playing video games for hours, other forms of procrastination that have you put off important tasks. This quadrant stands out from the rest as none of these tasks help you get anywhere near your long-term goals, at least in most cases. In addition to that, these can be cut out almost entirely, and you'd likely be better off because of it. But let me make one thing clear. Some people believe that you can or should be productive 24/7 and completely get rid of activities of leisure. I personally disagree with this line of thinking, and I don't think it's sustainable for most people. There needs to be a balance, but you should be intentional about your downtime. Whatever it is you enjoy doing, make sure it doesn't add more stress to your life, doesn't drain you of your energy, and isn't consuming too much of your time. These activities can help you, but they can also hurt you. They give you short-term gratification, but can leave you feeling unfulfilled if you overindulge in them. So again, be mindful and intentional with your time in Quadrant 4. So now that we have a basic understanding of the different tasks that belong in each quadrant, how do we put this to use? Start by creating your own matrix. What kinds of tasks do you have on a typical week? Place them in their respective quadrant. Take your time with this, as it's important that you sit down and really think about what's important to you. After you've created your matrix, assess which of the 4 quadrants take up the most of your time. If you feel that you're spending too much time in Quadrant 1, try to anticipate these tasks and plan ahead. While these tasks and the problems that come with them are inevitable and will always be there in some facet, you'll be much better equipped to tackle them if you can somehow plan ahead. If you're spending a lot of time in Quadrant 2, you're doing things right. This is the spot where, as mentioned before, you're focused on growth and working towards your long-term goals. If this is where the bulk of your time is spent, well done. If you're spending too much time in Quadrant 3, come up with strategies to limit the amount of time spent here. Perhaps the most effective strategy for dealing with Quadrant 3 tasks is learning how to delegate these assignments when possible. Perhaps you can have someone else do these tasks for you. In other cases, you might simply be able to avoid these tasks entirely. Learning when to say no and being able to distinguish between important tasks and unnecessary ones are very important skills to have. If you're spending a lot of time in Quadrant 4, identify your biggest time wasters and come up with a plan to avoid or limit these distractions. Remember, it's okay to relax and have downtime. Just don't let it get out of hand and try to plan for it and be intentional about it. With all this, you should be equipped to rebalance your quadrants and delegate more of your time towards meaningful tasks. Remember, one of the best ways to optimize your time management is to distinguish between important and unimportant tasks and simply eliminating the work that doesn't need to be done. That being said, I hope you found this video helpful. Be sure to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. While you're at it, be sure to follow my Instagram for similar content. I'll leave it linked below. I'll catch you all on the next one.